Let's look at the Thursday night injury report for you. Fantasy owners out there, one name missing from the injury report, and that was running back Javonte Williams from the Broncos. He'll be back tonight. We had a quad injury. He's coming back. With the wind expected to be howling, there is the running game that could be a big part for both teams. As mentioned, Travis Kelce questionable with the ankles. Broncos counterpart Greg Dulcich also questionable with a hamstring issue. As you take a look at the injuries ahead of Thursday night football. All right, let's welcome in two-time Super Bowl champion Bryant McFadden and former defensive end Douzable to talk about this game tonight. B-Mac, going to start with you here. Travis Kelce at 100%, virtually unstoppable. So what about Travis Kelce at, ballpark in here, 50, 60%?
Still unstoppable. Travis Kelce, he is him. When you factor in who he is as an individual, even if he's not healthy, Jeremy, you still got to account for number 87 when he's on the football field, right? And then you got to factor in the quarterback that's throwing him the football. Money Pat Mahomes. And that's the unique thing about great quarterbacks. Even when their skill guys might not be at their best in regards to health, a quarterback up to his caliber can make them look better. Right, and that's what I expect to see from Travis Kelce, because even if he's not involved in the passing game, he still will command attention, because you don't want to assume, you know what, he's not 100%. He might not be a big-time a contributor, playmaker when he's not healthy, and then you give him one-on-one opportunities, and guess what? He cashed in big time. So even if he's not healthy, just with him being in uniform, because we saw that last week against the Vikings, he stepped away for a few plays, got a spat job on his ankle, came back, looked like he was limping, and guess what? Number 15, he threw him the football, and he made plays. So me personally, even if he's not 100% healthy, you have to account for number 87.
Yeah, you're right, B-Mac. Whether Travis Kelce is 30%, 40%, 50%, they are going to find ways to get him the ball. You said it perfectly. When out in that game with an ankle injury, came back, they found him in the red zone. The continuity, the in-syncness that he has with this quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is second to none. And also, B-Mac, they use him as a decoy to free up other guys, whether it's Noah Gray or Justin Watson. So having Travis Kelce out there is monumental for this offense. We saw in week 1 when he wasn't out there, that offense really sputtered in that game for the Detroit Lions, and they lost. So whether Travis Kelce is 50%, 60%, if he's out there, he gives you an advantage.
Despite playing one game less than the rest of the receiving core, looking at the stats, Kelce has at least 10 more receptions than anyone else. That tells you his role in this offense. Leger, when you look at this Chiefs team, we expect offense, and it has been there. They've won 4 straight games, but they're starting to impress on the other side of the football now as well.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, Jeremy, because this team, and it's weird for me to even say this, Jeremy, is led by its defense. I mean, this defense has been dominated. B-Mac, you know this. The biggest growth for a player is between year 1 and year 2, when they come into year 2. Well, that young secondary that everybody was worried about as rookies, they are playing elite football. Trent McDuffie at the slot corner position is playing all-pro football. L'Jarius Sneed, he's been a mainstay in the secondary. He's playing Pro Bowl football. I mean, I have never seen a corner, to my eyes, to this point, essentially take Justin Jefferson out of the game. The way he played him last week, now there were times they did have a guy over the top, but every opportunity he got in man coverage, he was putting hands on Justin Jefferson, messing up that timing between him and Kirk Cousins. Other young players that have stepped up, George Karlaftis, Brian Cook, the safety in the back end. These young guys get after it. So now, if you're Chris Jones, you realize I don't have to do this all by myself. Mike Dana has come to the party. He has 3.5 sacks. So it's, again, it's weird to say that this team is being led by its offense. I mean, it's defense, but it is, because right now their offense is kind of sputtered as far as understanding what their identity is on offense. We don't see the Patrick Mahomes offense that throws for 400 yards and puts up 35 points. We see this defense stifling teams.
I'll say this, through 5 games, granted, still a small sample size, Leger, but this might be the best defense that Pat Mahomes has had as a starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there's still a lot of football left to be played, but based on everything you hit on, and oh, by the way, outside the eye test, the numbers, it backs everything in regards to how we all view this Kansas City Chiefs defense. The scheme, Steve Spagnuolo has done a phenomenal job putting his players in positions to be successful. The personnel is there. You talk about how well they drafted. Being able to get Chris Jones back into the lineup has helped tremendously as well. And the thing that I love about this defense, just the physical nature they play with. You talk about about guys in the secondary, they have the same mentality with the guys in the trenches on the defensive line unit as well. They play what I call elbow defense, right? Your elbow, it bends, but it don't break. And what I mean when I talk about them in regards to playing elbow defense, look at the points allowed. They only allow around 16 points per ball game through 5 games, guys. Get this. They have only surrendered 6 touchdowns. So just because you get in the red area, that does not mean you're going to score touchdowns against this defense. And if you're able to do that defensively, you will be in positions to win. And they have carried this team, like you said, because the offense hasn't really been the Kansas City offense that we've seen in years past. But the defense has really stepped up, and only allowing 6 touchdowns in 5 games proves that.
And you look at Chris Jones, I mean, he's got at least 1 sack in 7 straight games. They're a top 10 defense. On the opposite side, of course, the Broncos, one of the worst defenses in the NFL, if not the worst. But let's talk about this Broncos offense. The 1-4 start, their worst start since 2019. B-Mac, this Peyton-Wilson marriage is not off to the best of starts, is it?
Well, it looks like that. But then when you do your research and really dissect the film and look at the numbers, actually, this relationship isn't as toxic as we think it is. And the reason why I say that is because through 5 ball games, yes, the Denver Broncos have been a bad team. But individually speaking for Russell Wilson, through 5 ball games, he's been balling, completing around 66% of his passes. You look at his touchdowns to interception ratio, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, clearly averaging around 240 or so passing per ball game. And if you look at a year ago in that 5-game span, the numbers have improved dramatically for Russell Wilson. A year ago in 5 games, he only completed around 56% of his passes, when he had around, 4 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So in the reality side of things, he's playing pretty good football. Just unfortunately for the Denver Broncos, they have a Pop Warner defense, basically, because they have allowed every offense to do numbers on them. And that has put a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson and his offense to score points because they can't get any stops. So I understand you talk about the marriage and how toxic it seems to be. I mean, nothing looks good when you're losing ball games. But for Russell Wilson, compared to how he looked a year ago, he has improved under Sean Payton.
Yeah, B-Mac, he's improved, but I mean, there was not much room but to go up the way he played last year. And I question this marriage going into it, because if you just look at the history of Sean Payton, right, it's a timing-based offense. Like Drew Brees, when that back foot hit, he knew exactly where to go with the football. Well, if you look at Russell Wilson, Jeremy and B-Mac, that's not how he likes to play. He likes to play off script, and I was wondering with Sean Payton, with all his remarks this offseason, how he would portray this offense, right? Would he lean into what Russell does really well, or would he make Russell Wilson conform to what he does? It's been a combination of the two, but if you look at when Russell Wilson goes 4 wide or 5 wide, right, and he has to throw in timing, he just does not do it, whether the first read is open or not. He wants to hold the ball, be able to run around and make plays down the field. I think it's a misconception. You look at his numbers, right, and you look at the actual film. Let's not forget the last 2 weeks, they were down big in those games. Yeah. So it's a lot of dirt yards at the end. And then if you look at just last week versus Jets, B-Mac, after the 3rd quarter, this man had 70 yards passing, right? Most of his yards came in the 4th quarter when they were trying to mount a comeback. So, yes, he's played better, but this marriage to me still has not worked. It's still not what everybody thought it would be as far as Sean Payton turning around Russell Wilson in his career. Again, he's played better, but there wasn't much room but to go up from what he did last year.
Wilson sitting 5-15 as the Broncos starting quarterback, including 1-3 in primetime games. So, Lige, we mentioned the losing streak against the Chiefs. When a team has dominated like this, you're off to a terrible start. How does that affect the mindset as you go to their house and try to snap the streak?
I mean, B-Mac can speak to this. No matter what, whether you've lost 11 straight, which they have to Patrick Mahomes, or 15 straight against this organization, at the end of the day, this is a divisional game. There's a pride factor that goes into this. If you want to make a move to the playoffs, and right now the Denver Broncos are just vying for wins. They're just trying to get wins, right? You've got to win divisional games. And the funny thing is, Jeremy, the last 2 games kind of came down to the wire now. The Chiefs jumped out, and Denver made a comeback in both of those games. But the Denver Broncos have played this Chiefs team extremely close, whether, again, they were coming back from behind or whether the game was close to begin with. So, yes, it is degrading for a team to beat you 15 straight times and a quarterback to beat you 11 straight times. But at the end of the day, there is a pride factor that goes out when you play a divisional game.
Yeah, it's more mental than anything because a lot of these players that's a part of the Broncos organization, you know, they haven't really been there through the thick of this winning streak for the Kansas City Chiefs. So just them knowing is basically coming through the media or just doing their research. But as you mentioned, it's all about trying to win ball games regardless because number one, for the Broncos, they're trying to find a way to provide a sense of light for their season. Number two is a divisional team who they don't like, and vice versa with the Chiefs not liking the Broncos. And number three, they're just trying to get on the right track. And the best way to do so would be finding a way to upset the Kansas City Chiefs on a national stage. But I'll tell you this much, for the Denver Broncos, there's no pressure. They should be extremely relaxed. They should be as comfortable as a baby in a car seat because no one is expecting them to do anything significant against Money Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll tell you this much, LeJay, before I became a starter, when I was a nickelback, I came into ball games. No one was really expecting me to do anything significant because guess what? He's not a primary starter for us. I played some of my best football because I'm like, hey, if I screw up, they kind of like, well, he's kind of young. He hasn't really got it yet. But then when I make a play, it was a big deal because, oh my goodness, the young fella made a play. That should be the same mentality for the Broncos in tonight's matchup.
All right, so let's get into that then. Let's talk some X factors for this game. B-Mac, give me your X factor for tonight.
Isaiah Pacheco, one of the hardest running backs, literally, in the National Football League. And the reason why he is my X factor, guys, is because the defense he's going against. The storyline, the most consistent thing for the Denver Broncos defensively has been a feeble defense against opposing offenses' rushing attack. They're dead last in the National Football League in rush yards allowed, 187 to be exact. The last three running backs that have played against the Denver Broncos, right? Your guy, Breece Hall.
Oh, yeah.
LeJay, 177. The next guy, Khalil Herbert, 103 yards, but he averaged almost 6 yards per carry. Then before him, Devon A-Chain, over 200 yards rushing. So Isaiah, I'm not saying the standard is the standard, but I am saying the standard is the standard because this defense, they have surrendered a lot of yards to opposing featured running backs. And if you look at what Vegas set the line for Isaiah Pacheco, his rushing yard prop, they're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. His number is set at 77. That's pretty high for a guy who, when you look at what he's done this season, only surpassed 100 yards rushing one time. Yep. So he has to be an X factor for the Kansas City Chiefs. Number one, you might not get 100% healthy Travis Kelce. Number two, this defense has surrendered big time gains to featured running backs who they face. So, hey, the pressure is on, Isaiah. It's up to you to at least get triple digits against this ball club.
Yeah, B-Mac, we were thinking the same. I have another X factor, but I just want to speak on Isaiah Pacheco. You follow me on social. I think, Jeremy, you do too. I love spearfishing, and there's nothing better than diving 10, 20 feet deep in the water. You see a hogfish line up against a reef, and then you get that side profile. It's easy pickings. That's what Isaiah Pacheco is looking at this Denver defense like. Easy pickings. You talked about it. 3 straight backs went over 100 yards. They're surrendering at 187 rush yards a game at almost 6 yards per carry. But I'm going to go to the other side. Pat Surtain, one of the best cornerbacks in football. Don't think the Denver Broncos defense has used him properly. Will be interesting tonight to see how Vance Joseph uses his talent, right? Last week, Garrett Wilson, he shadowed him a few times, not the whole game. Will he put him on Travis Kelce one-on-one? I think that's something they should do because the Kansas City Chiefs have really struggled trying to find a true #1 receiver outside of Travis Kelce. Patrick Surtain is one of the best in the game. You see right here, they needed a turnover versus Jets big time. One-on-one situations, Zach Wilson throws a fade to Garrett Wilson. What does he do? Picks it off, gives his team an opportunity. I think it will be big for him tonight to man up on Travis Kelce throughout the game to slow him down and make Patrick Mahomes beat them with somebody else.
Practicing that spearfishing for that shot at Survivor?
Oh, yeah, maybe. You know, I like doing some wilderness stuff.
On CBS. All right, finish us off with a wager here. Chiefs favored by 10.5, total at 47.5, but weather expected to affect the game script here, Lige. Winds howling, they're saying 40 miles an hour. So what kind of a play are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm going to do a parlay, Jeremy. B-Mac knows I always bring my parlay on Thursday. I know weather could be a factor, but I just looked up some of the weather. They said wind gusts up to 40, but it looks like it's going to be in between 15 or 20. So I don't think it'll affect the game much. I'm taking the over in this game. If you looked at the last couple games that the Denver Broncos and Kansas City Chiefs played, they crushed the over on this number. I am with you 100% on Isaiah Pacheco. Over the 77.5 rush yards, the Jets are one of the best defenses in football. He busted them for over 100 yards, so this should be easy pickings for him. Anytime touchdown. The number 1 running back the last 3 weeks has scored a touchdown against the Denver Broncos. And then I like Sutton, the receiver, over 43.5 receiving yards. If you look at the Kansas City Chiefs defense, the number 2 receiver has crushed this number, whether it was Jacoby Myers, Christian Kirk, or Allen Lazard. So I like Sutton to go over the 43.5 receiving yards.
See, that's the good thing about watching us. Leger's going to give you multiple options. You could choose to win money, right? I'll just give you one. So it's either heads or tails. 50% chance you're going to win, 50% chance you're going to lose, right? I'm taking the Denver Broncos to cover the spread. 10 and a hook. And Leger, you talked about the weather. Thank you for giving us some insight on the weather. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. But the reason why I'm taking the Denver Broncos is because the thing about the Kansas City Chiefs, the last 8 times they've been a double-digit favorite or more, they only covered twice. And also, too, if you look at the Denver Broncos, one thing about them, they fight to the end. You talked about Russell Wilson, Leger getting garbage yards in the 4th quarter. They keep their foot on the gas. And I expect to see a backdoor cover in this ball game in favor of the Denver Broncos. And for the bettors that are watching me, watching Leger, watching Jeremy, there's nothing sweeter than a backdoor cover.
At all.
I understand it might raise your pressure a little high or low, but when it comes through at the end, woohoo, you jumping for joy. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a nice backdoor cover happening tonight for the Denver Broncos.
2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden, former defensive end Leger Douzable, breaking down Thursday night football between the Chiefs and Broncos at Arrowhead. And Taylor's going to be there. Talk about that.
Swifties.
For more from B-Mac. Do you think B-Mac likes Swifties?
He might.
I hope he's a Swiftie.
We need to ask him about that. What about Pat P? You think Pat P likes
I think he's becoming one.
Swift? Hey, those guys have a podcast. All things covered. Download and follow wherever you get your preferred audio.